Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Glad you could all make it. We're going to get started. Ryan couldn't make it today, so Jeff has decided or has elected to step in, agreed to step in to do Rotary Bucks for us. Or Happy Bucks.
Apologies in advance. I'm not as funny as Ryan, but I will be more than eager to take your money. So with that, who has some happy stories they'd like to share for the week? We got a taker back here. What's behind door number 1?
I'm so happy someone besides Ryan is doing this.
Thanks, Bob. Anyone else want to throw Ryan under the bus? No? All right, I'm going to go table to table. Who here has something happy they want to share? Oh, guys, this is not a very happy table over here. I'm sure this table's happier. Gentlemen, no. Any takers over here? Oh, we got sad faces. I'll get you next week. Here we go, Rusty.
I'm happy to announce that for the first time in my life, I'm going to be a grandfather on May 8th in Tennessee.
Congratulations. That's your birthday? Oh, that's awesome. There we go. Who else? For anybody who's unfamiliar with Happy Bucks, we donate to the cause. This goes to the CART Foundation. It's a good cause. You get to share something with the club. We got somebody standing? No. Okay. Anyone else? There we go. What do we got, Josh?
I am happy that it's going to be 65 degrees tomorrow.
All right. Here's to warm weather. Thank you, Josh. Anyone else today? With that, I think I'll pass the baton.
Very good. Thank you very much. All right. For all of you who did not participate, somebody at your table, please pick up your blue bucket and start passing it around. I need to see buckets up. Buckets up. Let's get them moving. Thank you. Okay, announcements. Next week is on February 4th on Tuesday. We're meeting at the Ronald McDonald House at noon to bake cookies for the children and the families there. This is something we do once a year. I think we still have 5 or 6 openings left for that. Again, that's next week. Next Thursday, we have Thursday, 5 to 8. It's at Fire Forge Brewery this week. And then our next meeting, February 11th, we will have our Career Day luncheon. And thanks in advance to those of you who have volunteered to share your vocations with our high school kids in the area. And lastly, we have now through March 5th, please bring your food donations. And there will be more details in the newsletter, but please bring your food donations. For Alexander Elementary School kids, we do the backpack packing when they have long breaks from school, and spring break is coming up in March. So again, the more details, and a flyer is going to go out as well on that. If you bow your heads for me for invocation. As we gather today, let us reflect on the privilege we have to serve others. May we be guided by wisdom, kindness, and a shared commitment to making a difference. Let our actions inspire and uplift, creating ripples of goodwill that extend beyond this room. In all we do, may we uphold the values of integrity, compassion, and fellowship. Together, we can transform our communities and enrich lives with purpose and hope. If you'd stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Laura Nicholas. I have the honor of introducing our visitors and our visiting Rotarians. So if you would, I'm going to call your name if you're here with us visiting. If you would stand so we can all welcome you. And then for everyone else, please just hold your applause until everyone's standing, and then we can welcome them together. Okay. So welcome to Troy Turk and Coleman Hennessy, who are guests of the club. Please stand. Welcome to Holly Pritchard, who's a guest of Christina Wieland. And welcome to Catherine Chu, who's a guest of Colleen Simmons. And then welcome also to David Goff, who is a visiting Rotarian. Great. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to see you all here today. It's my honor and privilege to be able to introduce our speaker today, Sheriff Hobart Lewis. In his 4th year as Sheriff of Greenville County, Sheriff Hobart Lewis has spent a lifetime committed to law enforcement and serving his community. Born and raised here in Greenville County, Sheriff Lewis's journey into law enforcement began remarkably young. At just 14 years old, he had the unique opportunity to participate in the Greenville County Sheriff's Office Cadet Program, providing him with invaluable firsthand insight into the world of policing. In addition to that, Sheriff Lewis's father served in the Greenville City Police Department and inspired him from a young age to follow in his footsteps. At age 17, he joined the United States Army, biding his time until he reached 21 and he could pursue his dream of a career in law enforcement. Upon reaching that milestone, Sheriff Lewis wasted no time and embarked on his law enforcement journey with the City of Greer Police Department. He attended Basic Class 317 and embraced the opportunities of working for a smaller agency. And after a decade of dedicated service, he rose to the rank of sergeant. Sheriff Lewis joined the Greenville County Sheriff's Office and first ran for sheriff in 2016. And in this election, he just narrowly missed winning by 288 votes. In 2019, circumstances led to the special election, granting Sheriff Lewis another chance to lead the premier law enforcement agency in the state of South Carolina. He seized this opportunity and secured a landslide victory in January of 2020, becoming the sheriff of Greenville County. So beyond his professional accomplishments, which there are many, Sheriff Lewis treasures his family life. He has been married to his wife, Angie, for over 30 years. They have 2 children, Madeline and John, a daughter-in-law, Micah, and a precious 3-year-old granddaughter. And I've just found he's got another one that's coming. So congratulations on that. Won't you join me in welcoming Sheriff Hobart Lewis to the Rotary Club of Greenville?
Wow, what a gracious introduction. I wish everywhere I went that happened, but usually it never does. Grandparenting is the best. If you don't have grandkids, I hope you do get to experience that at some point. If I knew grandkids were so good, we would have had those first and just foregone having to raise our 2 kids. But it is, you got a lot to look forward to for sure. And we're blessed. But I'm very fortunate to be here today as your sheriff here in Greenville County. I have to tell you, I do pinch myself quite often. It's hard to believe that I'm standing here after I lost in 2016 and kind of took a chance to run. Never thought I would get another bite at the apple, but that's how God works. And I do believe, and I've told this story many times, that had I not lost in 2016 and kind of went through that on a personal level, I certainly would not have been ready to run again. And my first day in office was March 16th of 2020. Does that ring a bell with anybody? So I'm not saying I'm a good luck charm by any circumstance, but the governor called to congratulate me and introduced me to COVID, or COVID as he called it. And so we that's how we began our first term. And what a wild ride it's been, but very fortunate to have just turned the page on our first term and move into our second as we started that January the 7th. So it's a great honor to serve as the sheriff of this county in particular. You live and work in the largest populated county in the state of South Carolina. We have the largest, if you look at agencies among the states, we don't have the jail, the detention facility here, or forensics or property and evidence or records. So that's really not under the sheriff. But if you look at the number of sheriff deputies and investigators and civilian folks we have, you have one of the largest agencies in the state. We have a little over 600 sworn personnel now, and it's kind of hard to believe looking back. There you know, when I worked here and worked the road, we had about 300. We had about half of that. So Greenville has certainly grown as the population grows and different needs grow. You have a little over 117 civilian staff. We're still located at number 4 McGee Street. That building has been there since 1972 when they started on it. Sheriff Cash Williams moved into that building with Greenville City. At the same time in 1975, Sheriff Brown, our longest serving sheriff, Sheriff Johnny Mack Brown, moved in that building in January of 1977. And he held that position for 24 years and came back. I'm trying to think, was it 18? Starts to run together. He came back in 18 when a disruption occurred with the current sheriff and filled in until we had a special election. So a lot of history in that building. Greenville City has just moved out. They have a new location over off Halton Road. So we're currently in the renovation process of getting ready to move some folks back into the building. We have 5 different locations throughout the county that we house offices in. So we're looking forward to moving about 100 folks back into the law enforcement center. And that's exciting. It's exciting to have people back under one roof and cuts back on some of our costs we pay to lease some of the buildings we're in now. 2025, looking toward the future, there's a lot going on. We have a new president. We will continue to do the job we do. However, I will tell you it's making it much easier to do it already. Some may not agree with, you know, not talking about Republicans and Democrats and all those things, but we're talking about how courts and law enforcement work together to make this community safe. Everybody has been calling and asking about immigration issues, so I will hit that first. Everybody, I have a number of schools that have called here in Greenville County worried about us coming around and picking children up that are brought here illegally and being transported back out of this country. That is not what immigration is doing. I know the news media would love for you to believe that, but that is not what is occurring. What is occurring is we're working with ICE and Homeland Security to get our criminal element who are illegal aliens out of Greenville County, out of South Carolina, and sent back to the country they came from. Whether you agree or disagree with that, that is happening, and it's happening here in Greenville. Personally, I agree with it. These folks, we're housing them in our jail. They're in our court system. It is a heavy, heavy strain on our financial burden here at the county. And it's, you know, if you look at the numbers, it doesn't look like much until you start totaling that up. These folks are committing crimes. You talk about human trafficking. You talk about drug transactions. You talk about homicides, gang activities. Our gangs are growing here in Greenville County. And the reason why is because our young people are falling into that trap. And a lot of that really occurred when they were able to do e-learning at home and didn't have to go to school. A lot of gang members were able to recruit these kids who may spend 2 hours on a laptop doing e-learning and walking around the neighborhood the rest of the day, and nobody really being able to watch them or supervise them. The gang life looked pretty enticing to them. So we've seen those numbers skyrocket in the past 3 years. So that's kind of if you got any questions, I'll be glad to answer them at the end of this. But from an immigration standpoint, we've had a lot of interest in what we're doing and who we're working with on those things. Our homeless population, if you drive through Greenville, you know, from 2020 to 21 to 22, our homeless population was at about 1,800 folks that actually found themselves living at businesses, on loading docks, under bridges, all those things in the woods. We've been able to cut that number down. We've been able to identify those folks and offer resources that we do have available here in Greenville County. We have 4 deputies who go out, interact with these individuals, find out what their medical needs are. We have a lot of people who have some type of mental issue or some type of medication they need that they don't get. Everybody thinks these are drug addicts or alcoholics living out here on the street, and that is just, we have found that is not the case. There are just some people who don't really want to be around anybody, and they choose to live that way, and certainly don't have the finances to do a lot of other things. So finding those resources for those folks and getting them off the street. And we've been able to find jobs for some folks. We've been able to find some housing. We have a lot of veterans who are homeless. So working with Upstate Warrior Solutions and finding resources for them, housing for them, hospitals for them where they can get their medication and get what they need, get them off the street, especially during the cold times of the year for sure. But we have seen about a reduction in that to about half. So you don't see them in the middle of the intersections holding signs anymore at Woodruff Road and 385. We've stopped that. For the most part, we do have some new homeless people that tend to migrate here, and they kind of pick that up every now and then, but we address that pretty quickly. We do have a large number of Afghan immigrants that live in another county, and they come here in shopping centers. We've identified to bum money, for lack of a better term, and now you see them selling flowers and doing those things. So we've addressed that and trying to figure out kind of who's behind it to stop a lot of that. It's a disruption for traffic. It's a huge safety issue for people in Greenville, and we don't need any more obstructions than the one we got if you're on Woodruff Road and Wade Hampton and all that stuff. A lot of people ask questions about our human trafficking unit, crimes against children unit. Human trafficking is very real. We have 85, it comes through Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson. That is a major corridor for a lot of this to occur. So if you see deputies stopped out on the interstate, out on 85, and they're going through somebody's vehicle, they're not always looking for drugs and all that stuff. Most of the time now, it leads to a human trafficking type event where they're taking children maybe to Charlotte to drop them off, to move them on to the next location. Before the border was closed, we saw a lot of children that were recycled across the border. So at that time, back last year and the past 4 years, anyone illegal who came across the border, Chinese, Hispanic, whatever the case may be, would get a gift card. If you had a child with you, you would get another gift card for that child. So what they would do, come in through Brownsville or Eagle Pass, you have 3 kids with you, they all 3 get a gift card and you're in charge of that. They would recycle those kids at a different location back across the border and come back with another family or another male, female, whatever. They didn't know to get those gift cards and cell phones and all those things. They don't use retina scanners on children. They use them on adults that come across the border, the ones they do capture and give a court date to. So having the border closed and stopping this, we have not seen in the past few weeks, have not stopped those vehicles that we see carrying children. I'm not telling you it is resolved, because it is not. But it is a terrible, terrible, terrible situation to see a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old in the back of a car. They have no idea who the person is driving. They're urinating in Gatorade bottles, not eating the whole trip. The driver does not care about these kids. He's just trying to get them where they're going to his next drop-off point. It's hard for us to imagine that. We don't deal with those things in our families, but this really does occur. So when you talk about human trafficking and people mention that, most of the time they gear it toward prostitution. And that's true too. We do have a prostitution issue in America. Certainly have one in Greenville at 85 and Augusta, and kind of in the hotel area, that triangle we call it, is a huge issue for adults. But let us not forget about these children who just don't know. We have a lot of schools that help us identify kids who are being abused. And we have a great crimes against children unit that goes out and investigates these things. So if you see something, you see it in the news and it says Greenville County's Crimes Against Children Unit went out there and investigated this, we're not going to tell you the child's name or what family may be involved, but that's usually the case. There was some sexual abuse involved. There's a court case, a trial coming up at the end of February called the Rose Petal murder. I'm sure everybody's heard of that. Occurred over in Canebrake, and it involves a lot of abuse to a child, and that I'm sure will come out in trial. But horrific situation that happened. So unfortunately, we have to deal with those things. We answer about 500,000 calls a year in Greenville County, our dispatch communication center. We have more deputies working now than we've ever had before when you look at those that work the road. So you'll see those black and silver cars. You probably see a lot more of them. But the community's been a big help. We're successful in our criminal investigations division in solving our homicides. We've had a 100% clearance rate for 3 years. We've solved 13 cold cases in 4 years, one that dates back to 1974. And I will tell you, nobody knows this, but we're fixing to make an arrest and solve another one from 1978. So there's a lot going on. A lot of people are doing a lot of great work because they have the ability to do it that we didn't always have. We were running, putting out small fires, and not dealing with the big issues. So very proud of our organization and the people I get to work with on a daily basis. I get a lot of credit for things I don't do. A lot of people say, hey, I'm glad you're our sheriff. You're doing such a wonderful job. Well, I appreciate that very much, but I always have to take it back to our folks and tell them that y'all appreciate what they do because it is those folks that do the work. I just happen to be the elected official in charge of law enforcement here in the county, but it truly is those men and women that strap those vests on, leave their families every night to come out here and protect us so we can sit in here and eat a nice lunch very peacefully, move throughout the county however we want to because those folks are out there working and they sacrifice a lot. So please, if you see them, pat them on the back, tell them thank you. You know, I'm not asking you to buy their lunch. We do have folks that do that, and it's very nice, but don't jam anybody up by doing that. But a good firm handshake and a nice thank you goes a long way. They got families just like we do, and it's very difficult to ask them to leave their family at 7 at night and stay awake till 7 in the morning and deal with all the things they deal with. When you look at officer-involved shootings, you'll see plenty of articles in the paper about that, whether it's the Post and Courier, the Greenville News, or Fitz News, or the state newspaper. I get calls all the time about officer-involved shootings. You know, people say, why have those numbers went up? Well, crime has went up. People are much more dangerous today than they were 5 years ago. More guns on the street, more people pointing and presenting firearms at law enforcement. So it is a tough time, but do y'all have any questions for me? Anything at all about law enforcement in Greenville? I'll answer any question you got. So that was, well, there's two things. Are you referring to the truck on 85 and we shut everything down? We did not have an officer shot. We had a robbery suspect from Pickens County that they had called us about and advised us, hey, he's driving this vehicle. I didn't mean to mess you up, man. I'm sorry. I'm just wanting to walk around. I apologize. I wasn't thinking. Deputies went over there and found the car. The suspect pulled a gun up. He was hiding in the car and had a hoodie on. The deputies didn't know that. So they got up to identify the car and go to try to figure out if he was in a hotel room, this robbery suspect from Pickens. So when the first deputy got out, he pulled the hood back and got a weapon and charged it. And the shootout began. He got out of the car and ran down the sidewalk and was shot several times there. So once that occurred and they called that out that, hey, we have an officer involved shooting, you have SLED there. You have obviously all administrative folks there, other backup officers, medics, EMTs, forensics. There was probably just under 200 law enforcement on scene, but it was at a hotel called Greenville Inn and Suites at 291 across from the old Bilo, if y'all know where that is at Malden Road. I'm sure that's last Thursday. I'm sure that's what you're referring to. All our people are fine. The suspect's dead. You know, we had 6 deputies out there, and I don't know how they reported that a deputy was hurt because we try to tell them pretty quick because we know somebody's family's watching, you know, and wives, husbands, all that start calling. But somehow I think it was YFF for some reason because I started getting a lot of calls, but we did not have any deputies injured, thankfully. So always blessing to be able to say that. The tractor trailer that was on 85, one of the strangest situations. Like I said, I could be bad luck. So I was actually on the way home that day. I was getting in my truck, and they called and said, "Hey, we got a bomb in a tractor trailer on 85." So I'm like, okay, I better not go home, right? So, but a transport police officer had stopped a tractor trailer on 85 heading north, just past White Horse Road. She walks up to the truck like they normally do, and they deal with commercial vehicles. They don't deal with four-wheel cars, just commercial vehicles. So she walks up to the truck like she normally would and asks for his license, his logbook, his paperwork. He gives it to her. He steps out of the truck, and she says, "Do you have anything in the truck I need to know about?" And that's a normal thing. If we're looking for drugs or people being trafficked, that's a normal beginning to that conversation. He said, "Yes, I have a bomb." And she backed up, like waiting on him to laugh or do something. And he doesn't laugh. And she says, "No, really, do you have anything in the truck?" And he said, "Yeah, really. I got a small bomb on the trailer of this truck." So she gets him, puts him in her Tahoe. They back up away from this truck. They call us because we have a bomb team. So the bomb team, SWAT team, and deputies go out there. We make a decision to shut down the traffic north and southbound. And we had just had the bombing in New Orleans. It was like a week after that. So we have to take that serious. He was moved immediately out to Donaldson Center to a different location. The FBI came in, interviewed him. He never said, "Hey, whoa, I was just kidding." Like, everybody just calmed down until he got to jail. And once they moved him from Donaldson to the jail and gave him his charging documents, he said that he was just kidding. So, but it was about a 4.5 hour ordeal. We put drones in the truck. We put dogs on the truck. The bomb team went in there. It was full of frozen chickens. All those frozen chickens had to be unloaded and checked. So we had the ATF and our bomb guys. It's a very long process. And the reason we shut everything down, some traffic had stopped with him on 85. So we didn't know if there was a trigger in another car, maybe that if he really did have a bomb, are they heading to Charlotte, New Jersey, New York, wherever, and is the trigger man in a car behind him in case he gets stopped, and they're just going to blow this thing up where they can. So that's why a lot of people called about snipers on the hotels to watch those, overwatch, we call it, to watch those vehicles in case we could see somebody pull something out and try to hurt the deputies that were approaching the truck. So very long ordeal, very unusual for that to happen. But thank goodness, again, there was no bomb in that truck. Any other questions? So most municipalities work traffic more so than we do. We don't work collisions unless the highway patrol or SLED or somebody's involved. We have deputies that would go out and work that. Now, where you have Malden, Simpsonville, Fountain and Greer, Travelers Rest, Greenville City, all those folks will go out on the interstate and they'll go out in roadways inside their municipality and run radar. We don't really do that much. We do have a traffic unit that has 12 deputies and a couple of fast cars and undercover type cars. They'll go out and work DUI enforcement. Now, they will write some tickets, but our focus is for those folks to work during those hours for DUIs. And in today's world, unfortunately, it could be any time of day. We get them at 9 o'clock in the morning. We get them at 9 o'clock at night. So our traffic division has a little different focus, but we do work together. Sometimes all the traffic units will get together and maybe do some speed enforcement on a very dangerous road like Jonesville Road, Scuffletown Road, where we've had collisions that have grown in number. We will go out and help the highway patrol do speed enforcement. But on the county level, we don't work any wrecks here. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. We've looked at those. You have to be, I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. She asked, so there's some new technology that will deploy a GPS chip wrapped in a goo type, the stretchy stuff we had when we were kids, you could throw it against the wall and it wouldn't fall for 2 days and your parents get mad at you. It looks like that stuff. But it comes out of, it looks like a grenade launcher on the car. And if you hit it just right, it'll stick to the back of the car. And there's a GPS that's activated in there, and we can just kind of turn away, let the car go wherever it's going to go, and try to find it later. So there were some insurance companies that were willing to pay for that technology to be placed on a certain number of cars, and we looked at it, but it's just not, it just didn't really work the way they said it would. You have to be so close to the car to shoot the car. And my thought is, if we're that close to the car and we're chasing him, put a bumper into him and push him off the road, get the car and the suspect, stop the chase. That's what we do. So if you see cars piled up somewhere, we will wreck you. You can run from law enforcement here, but we will put you in a ditch. We don't, certainly want no part of pursuits, and they're extremely dangerous. We call off a lot of them during school times or heavy traffic on Wade Hampton, and the schools there just say at Bob Jones, we're leaving the city chasing somebody, and we know the elementary school and high school is letting out. We're not going to pursue somebody because they will, at all costs, they will run through a red light, they will wreck somebody. We have a number of flock cameras. I feel like our money's well spent there. And we have a number of those. We can track people if they have broken the law. We can put that tag number in, and those flock cameras will pick them up, and we can just head them off, whether we have to go to Spartanburg and catch them on Wade Hampton, or go to Anderson and catch them on 85. So we don't have a lot of pursuits in Greenville County. Suspects who commit violent crimes, we will pursue those folks. Stolen cars, we don't chase. It's just not worth it. We can find that car, we can find that person later. But obviously, if they were involved in a homicide, we chase a lot of drug dealers up the interstate that come from Atlanta going to Charlotte. We try to stop them, and they start throwing kilos of coke out the window. Most of those folks have firearms, so we will wreck those folks when we're able to do that. Traffic's clear, and we got a place we can push them off the road. That's worked pretty well for us. Any other questions? Yes, sir. So his question is about gangs, kind of how do they form? How do they breed themselves here in the upstate? You have major gangs, the Bloods, the Crips, L5, the Hispanic gangs, the Latin Kings. We all see that on TV and know those are, kind of the big branded gangs. You have kind of offshoots of that these young people will start here, and those gangs will send somebody here to help them set up. We have a lot of gang activity in South Carolina, a lot. And a lot of that is because we're in between Atlanta and Charlotte. Those are two major drug distributors on the East Coast, come out of those areas. So recruiting people here to run those drugs that are under the age of 17, so they don't get a 20-year sentence for trafficking cocaine. They're a juvenile at 15 or 16. They get caught trafficking meth, fentanyl, cocaine, then they're going to get out when they're 18. And they know that, and these kids know that. But when you have no money, your mom and dad's not at home, maybe you're living with a grandmother and you've been dropped off at a neighbor, you don't have anything to eat except when you go to school twice a day. Nobody's watching in on you. Nobody cares about you. Gangs do a much better job recruiting people than we do. They know who to go after. So they're watching these bus stops, and they're watching their little brothers and sisters. They talk to them about who's in school and who's doing what. And you offer them something that they've never had, a sack full of cheeseburgers and a $100 bill. Well, we're going to be your family. We will take care of you. That's how they recruit them. They buy them clothes, and they drive in nice cars. They introduce them to guns, and it makes them feel powerful. It makes them feel like an adult. So we have all throughout the East Coast, South Carolina's no exception. We have a large gang presence here. Most of our gangs right now, and they move all around the county, most of ours are on the southern end of Greenville, between that Lawrence, Greenville County, Anderson line there is kind of a T shape. They'll get rental houses down there, motels or not motels, I'm sorry, but like mobile homes. They'll rent houses that they don't live in. They just go there to conduct business in. We go bust them. We arrest everybody. They go to jail. If we can't seize that property because it's rental property, they hadn't lost anything. The cars they're driving aren't worth what it would cost us to seize them. So what we have started doing is just seizing the cars anyway, auctioning them off. I mean, it's a complete loss, but we need to at least take that transportation away from them because they mobilize and move around the county. What we've seen the past 7 or 8 months is a large number of auto break-ins. We may have 100 auto break-ins over the weekend that are all gang members, and usually Spartanburg, a gang or group from Spartanburg will come here and break into cars, go back to Spartanburg. Our group from Greenville will go to Anderson and break into cars and then come back to Greenville. And, you know, we try to tell folks, do not leave a firearm in a car. Do not leave it unlocked. Don't leave your garage door opener in there. But, you know, they'll go to a subdivision and they will literally hit 30 cars that are unlocked. We just 2 weeks ago, I think it was in Simpsonville or down in the Five Forks area of Simpsonville. They were breaking into some cars. They opened the door. The alarm went off. The homeowner came out, said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And a 17-year-old turned around and fired off about 4 rounds at the homeowner, who was 2 o'clock in the morning. He's in his pajamas standing on his front porch. So things are certainly getting more dangerous. And the gun that was used, we believe, obviously was stolen out of a car that somebody had left the door open and left the gun in the dash, and it was unsecure. They just jerk it open. They'll take anything out of a car they can get and just throw it away later if they can't use it. But it is our gang unit works with really with the feds on identifying gang members and trying to figure out who's hitting what. We work with our legislators to try to toughen our juvenile facilities closed, but we're trying to toughen up the sentencing guidelines for juveniles because it's way too easy for them to get out. Our shooter from Tanglewood Middle School is due to get out, and he's been in DJJ now for about 2.5 years. But he runs the housing unit he's in. He murdered a kid at Tanglewood, and he literally runs that whole housing unit. He won't even come up here for court. Like, he don't want to leave his, you know, whatever he's trading for candy bars and Funyuns or whatever the canteen's got. He runs it all. So it's a problem. Yes, ma'am. So her question was, what can the community do to help stop gangs from recruiting young kids? I'd say keep your eyes open for sure, especially in your neighborhoods. Keep your eye on those young people that are getting off the bus. You see those kids wandering around your neighborhood. Don't be afraid to talk to them. Don't be afraid to develop a relationship with them, and don't be afraid to tell them that, you know what, there is no future in gang activity. I mean, sometimes they listen to us, especially we have SROs now in Greenville County. We have SROs in every school in Greenville. Very fortunate to have been able to do that. And we had a lot of help from the school district to help fund that for our elementary schools. And our SROs do a great job of talking to these middle school age kids, especially, and deterring them away from gang activity. But not a lot of kids in this situation I mentioned earlier want to hear from law enforcement. They don't trust us. They've heard from their parents or their friends, hey, those guys take you to jail. They're not interested in helping you. The community policing model has certainly changed. So we do count on the community a lot and community programs to help reach out to these kids to give them something they can cling to. Again, when you have a 13-year-old kid who only eats at school, and, you know, the school may send something home for the weekends, but that's normally going to a little brother or little sister. And you got that kid who really has not had nothing to eat Saturday, Sunday, and then school's closed on Monday for a teacher work day or a snow day. I mean, you got a 13-year-old really trying to provide for his siblings. It's pitiful. So I would just keep my eye out for that, you know, and don't be afraid to call us. We'll go out and help. We'll certainly help get some things they need, some supplies they need. And we got, we can call DSS and we can do those things, but a lot of 13 and 14-year-olds honestly do a better job of taking care of their little brothers and sisters than a lot of parents we see that want to go out and do their own thing and leave their kids at home. So this is a tough situation, but trying to identify that where you live, is a great help to us. Yes, sir. No, honestly, I get calls about that too. I've seen 2 people open carry in public. It's a terrible idea. If anybody in here wants to carry a gun, let everybody see it. I'm telling you, don't do it. That's the dumbest thing ever. But the Constitution allows you to do it. Now we should hold to that. I'm all for that. I'm all for the Second Amendment, but don't be stupid. If you want to carry a firearm and you're in the bank and you got it out there like Roy Rogers, while you filling out a deposit ticket, I just don't understand it. I want to be the guy, if I'm in the bank or I'm in a convenience store and somebody comes in to do harm or to rob the store, I don't want nobody to even know I got a gun. I want to have the element of surprise. So we've had a couple of calls. One was in a Walmart, which, you got to expect that, right? The guy's going to walk in when the bill passed. He's going in Walmart with that thing tied to his thigh, like, the Lone Ranger. But he had every right to do it. And a convenience store, a lady called, and she called because she didn't think it was legal for this particular person to even have a firearm. But those are the only 2 I know of in 2 years. So, and we hadn't had any issues. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. So the prisoners have more rights than you do. So those are 2 separate things. DARE was actually started by Nancy Reagan, and it was widely popular across the country, and it was a great program that funded schools, sent T-shirts, wristbands, educational material to all the schools all across the nation, and have someone trained, a law enforcement person, to come in back then and teach kids in the gymnasium the dangers of drugs, drug awareness program. What you're talking about, Scared Straight, where we used to bring SCDC inmates up here who were maybe getting close to making parole. They were getting close to getting out. They've been on good behavior, no previous issues while incarcerated, but they may be in there. I mean, these may be murderers. These may, obviously, we wouldn't send a rapist or, anything like that, but some really violent people at one time in their past that have done 25, 30 years in prison, and they would let them wear their prison uniform and bring them on a van, drop them off at a school, have 100 kids out there, and these guys, they knew how to do it. I mean, they were really, really good, and they understood they wanted to have an impact. Like, they wanted to turn their life and make it mean something for somebody else. So it was almost like an acting skit, for lack of a better term, but these were true stories. Now, they weren't allowed to lie to the kids, but they could be as dramatic as they wanted to be as long as they didn't touch anybody. But with all things being what they are, now we can't even turn their cell phones off that are illegal in prisons, and we can't make them work. We tried to get them to pick up trash. We tried to clean the roads up, maybe fix a pothole or 2. We can't even do that. If you're incarcerated, it is the state's responsibility to provide care for those folks and watch those folks and provide meals for them. But they're not allowed to do anything that somebody could do and get paid for in South Carolina. So, but it was a good program. I remember when I was in school, I remember it growing up as my kids were small too. I promise I thought I had that on vibrate. Sorry about that. But you cannot, but they do. Cell phones go for, yeah, well, yeah. We won't go into all that, but the cell phones selling the South Carolina Department of Corrections for $1,500 a piece. So it's not hard to get a staff member to bring a phone in. That's just a phone. That's no charger. Chargers are $150 a piece. But a lot of our drug operations here in the upstate are ran out of prisons because the boss, the head guy's in prison, and he calls the shots from jail on a cell phone. We work with Brian Sterling, who's a great administrator over at SCDC, and the FCC will not allow us to cut off those cell phone signals, because they, everything from the top of the blade of grass to the infinity, they regulate. So we have the technology to do it. They just won't allow us to do it. But for cell phones in prisons, I mean, there's a number of people that have been killed. We listen to jail calls all the time. There's a number of murders that have occurred because people have cell phones in prison that they hide. And again, when you got on your canteen card, you got $15,000-$20,000 because you're scamming people. Who in here knows somebody, or who in here has got a call that says, "This is Greenville County Sheriff Hobart Lewis, and you missed jury duty"? Okay, great. This happens all the time. We do not collect money over the phone. Don't give anybody any money in law enforcement anywhere. Not the IRS, not the FBI, nobody collects money over the phone. But that's right. They're running a scam now that they have these cell phones, and they'll look online and they'll get names of our captains or lieutenants, and they'll call and say, "Hey, this is Lieutenant Jonathan Jackson. You missed jury duty yesterday. We're coming to arrest you. Where can we pick you up?" And you're like, "What? I didn't get anything." "Oh, no, we sent it. We got proof we sent it. It's either we're going to come pick you up at work, or you're going to pay us $500 or $1,500, whatever the number is." "Well, I don't want to go to jail." "Well, we need to go to a Walgreens right now. I don't want your credit card. I need you to pick up this green dot card." "Yeah, go get one." And their canteen accounts are enormous. I mean, they got $25,000, $30,000 in there from scamming people. It's either Georgia Department of Corrections or South Carolina Department of Corrections, and they got the technology. They're calling people all over the East Coast to get this money, and they're taking advantage of a lot of older people. I don't know. It's probably going to take some law changes. I mean, that's just the one thing. The FCC and the FAA are two entities out there that they're just different. They run by a different set of rules, and they're both very, very, very difficult to work with. So they do it over the phone. They get that number. And then the canteen account, they have an account set up where they can enter the number on that card when you scratch it off, and it just credits it. We've tried to do that, or we hadn't, but the state has, and they've tried to catch that, but it's tough. I mean, there's so many of them doing it, and you have so many family members who are doing it too, family members who are sending them money that way. So, deciding what's real and what's not. When Mama's sending 400 and then Miss Jones just sent you 250, how do you determine which one's real and which one was a fraud? We track most of those cell phones, and they all come back to a prison somewhere. They got nothing but time on their hands. If they were doing that, going around the schools, they wouldn't have time to creatively come up with these schemes. Anybody else? I think he's cutting me off. Are you giving me the hook? I gotta go.
Thank you, Sheriff. That was great. And the club was very happy to buy you lunch today, so it's all good. I appreciate that. So if you give me my first slide here, remember the big four, if you would, please. We still need volunteers to help out. We're starting with, Jane's not here today, but the planning for Kringle 25 is well underway already. Please bring friends to discover Rotary. We had three guests there today. One was brought by Christine, who's hiding someplace back there. Yep. Holly was brought by Christine. Please bring somebody to discover Rotary. Get involved in your club. And last but not least, make sure you have fun. Please, let's do the four-way test. If you'll stand for me. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?